there is some, so official good evening, right? So, well, afternoon. So there are some lessons that, kind of general knowledge. I think this lesson kind of falls there. Like when we're doing HAZAP wasn't just general knowledge or bow tie, but today's lesson kind of fall within general knowledge. Oh, by the way, if you want, I actually did start with the syllabus, right? So the objective of this session, um,
So your screen is not showing. It's not
the
sharing.
speed is not showing. Okay, thanks for letting me know, right? Let me see what happened then. At least you were quick with it this time. Sometimes is it sharing now? No? Okay, okay. Let me see
No,
what's
it's
happening.
still saying that
So,
sharing started sharing screen.
okay, hold on. Let me see what's happening. Thanks for saying something. Sometimes, okay, because we're shared on my side. What about now?
Yeah, it's
Yeah?
up.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. Okay,
yeah.
great, great, great. Let me see what's happening here. Sometimes I see when right where those functions are, the chat button is right there. Sometimes maybe if I'm watching down, I probably would have hit that or admitting the admit button now. All right. So explain the principles of assessing and managing contractors, including the role of parties involved. I thought that was very easy, right? Outline the tools, standards, measurement, competency requirement, and controls applicable to the process safety management. Yes, process safety management, that is the element two. I'll show it in the syllabus just now in the oil and gas industry. Explain the role and purpose of permit to work. So I kind of hoping to reach that, but with explanation, right? This syllabus, let me try to pull it up. I had it open. What did I do with it? I had it open before we started, and then as we started, I sort of shared the PowerPoint. Okay, oil and gas syllabus. All right, so we have to, but if you check your syllabus, right, it is right. So it's really right. Hang on a bit, right? Can you see the syllabus in the back? As yet, in the background? Yes. Okay, good. So, um, I had this open in the screen before, but as we started, I just say, but I like to show it, right? So, like, you know where we are now, and then the syllabus is a good way to kind of study as well, right? So we wouldn't finish chapter two today, but chapter two we'll hope to reach permit to work, and that's what I'm saying, right? So you see hydrocarbon process safety, right? So if you see the heading there, it's nothing strange, right? The last thing we did on Wednesday, if you look here, you'll see the purpose of documented evidence such as safety cases, safety reports, and stuff, right? Typical contents, documents, and this is straight on the PowerPoint, folks. You don't need a video. That's what I'm trying to tell you all, right? Stop doubting yourself and think. Let's take the PowerPoints and start to study, right? The PowerPoints, when I wrote them, remember they are approved material, but they're written to the syllabus and exactly what the syllabus say. And sometimes more, I put a bit more, but if I put more, I normally tell you, oh, look, I've put this more, and that's not really part of the syllabus. I like put it more, but the PowerPoint is really good anyway to kind of get you in that study mode. And when you have limited time, what do you study? So if you look here, explain the principles of assessing and managing contractors, outline the tools, standards, and measurements, and explain the role and purpose of permit to work. So I'll try to reach there today. Wednesday we'll probably pick it up with safe shift handover and stuff like that, right? So that's what I try to reach today. And again, really, like I said, if you all could take part in today's class, because I know some students here may have done some of these things before already. Like, there's really nothing difficult in contractor management. Like, this could just be a discussion, like a 5 minute discussion, right? What the note is saying, and you could read for yourself too, that there are many contractors on a site, like during any period of work, especially things like shutdown, and those contractors need to be managed, right? So you could have a read of that. Here's some of the contractors you could have, just some, of course. We could have maintenance contractors, gas, certifying or gas testing contractors, safety contractors, companies that bring in the safeties, hot work contractors, and the list goes on and on. That itself, I mean, if that was a question, that's too easy. If that was a question to list maybe 2 marks, because remember the oil and gas exam is not really hard enough. What was hard is that you have to study. right? But maybe for 2 marks, identify two types of contractors on a project, that'll be too easy, right? But what makes it not easy is the fact that if you don't know it, you have to cram it now. You have to study it, right? So I just explained and I said that's a good way we could try to finish today class, right? So contractors ownership and making the contractors responsible are all part of health and safety legislation. In the UK, there is the main law for health and safety, which is the Health and Safety at Work, etc. Act 1974. Section 3 of that act talks about non-employees, like the non-employees have a certain commitment to health and safety too now, right? But the non-employees really that is mentioned there is really contractors, right? So the last point here, contractor ownership is implied in section 3.1 of the HSW Act anyway, right? So how could you get contractors involved? I suppose it's all those ways. It's kind of making them, part of your safety meetings. I don't know if you want to kind of come in on some of this. This is just some of the ways the source material had it now, right? But like things like toolbox meeting, safety committees, probably asking a contractor if they want to be part of that. But there's actually contractor meetings that are held between the client and the contractors themselves, right? So I mean, we have here supervision by the client, right? If you hire a main contractor to ensure that the main contractor has a good subcontractor. Kind of talking to myself here now too, right? So, like I have a contractor for those of us who know we have started our building in Palmis, well, Philippines, just after rituals there. But to be honest, I actually don't know the name of the subcontractor. So that's my fault. But that's because I'm busy. I normally deal with the main contractor, anything I want done. I sort of liaise with the main contractor, right? I really don't know the name of the subcontractor, right? So that's kind of my fault. Maybe this week probably try to get that done. But I suppose it's the client anyway, supervision. I'm the client there, supervision by the client to ensure that subcontractors follow the rules of the installation. This is more of course, for the industries as opposed to construction, right? Construction, like personal construction anyway, right? But folks, that's where the building is going to be. That's where the school is going to be. It probably wouldn't be in a hurry because I'm doing it in phases. I've given myself, those of us who were in my class, I have told you all that the degree students, I cannot give myself a long time frame. I give myself like, yeah, I mean a long time frame, like about maybe 2 years anyway, because we actually doing it in phases, right? Phase one, foundation, right? I intend to finish foundation this week anyway. Then, when the money's coming, phase two and stuff. So I'm doing it like that. But at least it's a plan. I've always told you all about that. Whenever you want to get something and make a plan, sometimes it doesn't happen, overnight, but it still is a plan anyway, right? So yeah, clients have a duty to maintain contractors. And we could bring it back to the industries now because I said personal and industries is a bit different anyway. Right. So a major cause of many accidents at work is poor communication. Contractors must be included in all health and safety procedures of the operation. Induction training must be carried out at each onshore and offshore installation. Contractors should be made aware of the consequences of failing to comply with the owner or the client requirements for safe work. And that may actually be that you could actually lose your contract, right? I think that's a serious one if the client has a requirement for PPE or like training that all the contractors,
Right.
and of course this could be safety. This could probably be think of it as NEBOSH, like people getting into contractors that take on safety then, right? So the minimum requirement must be NEBOSH, and of course those are the requirements. If it is found out that by the parent company then that these safeties don't have NEBOSH, it could of course result in the loss of tender of that contract. And of course, the top line does say if there's an accident, on the contractor's part, that may actually be if proper precautions were not taken, if safe systems of work were not done, if permits of work were not filled out, all of those things, it could result in that contractor losing their tender anyway. All right. So contractor ownership. So you all know I do this all the time. Those of us who know me, I go to the HSE website, I get guidances, I make the notes more than right? So there's a HSE guidance here, HSG 159. If you're not too sure what a guidance is, if this is one of your first time classes, a guidance is like a book, like the Health and Safety Executive, which is HSE, right? HSE stands for Health and Safety Executive. They have a website and they produce like a book on everything, right? So whatever you could think about, there's a book on that, there's a guide on that then, right? There's like a pamphlet, there's like a mini booklet. And this is how they manage here to say how to manage contractor. They mentioned about 5 steps in planning the job. You could start to manage your contractors from there. Choosing a contractor, yes, definitely that is, the client's responsibility. We have while the contractor is working on site, a lot of companies do this. They come and they do, like a monthly check on them, make sure that the meetings are being conducted, if accidents are being reported, right? Documents are being filled out, on time, etc. Keeping a check, right? And you can have a read of it, reviewing the work, right? Review the job of the contractor. How effective was your planning? How did the contractor perform? How did the job go? Were there any recorded lessons and stuff like that, right? So this one is me. I told you that this is like a bit more, but maybe it's a good thing. I mean, it's not based on a passive pass, so just letting you that no, this is me. Just the steps in managing a contractor, right? So planning the job, right? Choosing a contractor, monitoring the contractor. Maybe you could just go with one more, right? Which is been a review of the contractor work after a certain time, or maybe even when the job is actually finished anyway, right? Contractor responsibility to the client. A handover comes at the end of the project. The handover process should ensure, I'm not reading everything, right? The client is confident that their new asset is ready and safe for use, and they're able to operate, manage, and maintain it. Contractor responsibilities to clients. So again, this would be something that probably could have been installed if it was something that's being constructed. We could probably think of maybe like the base of a tank, right? Or maybe if it was something that was being fabricated, so the name and duty holders involved in the project, any design calculations and specification, anything the contractor have then should be given back to the client, right? Any chemicals, material safety data sheet, if it was a machine that was being repaired or whatever, operation and maintenance instruction, if they did a run with it, a test run with it, if they did any inspection, what is the results of the inspection, any training and stuff that is required to operate the machine, right? You know what somebody told me as maybe I could read this slide and I'll tell you. That just remember to tell you something, right? So written schemes of examination. So whatever the contractor did have to go back to the client, right? Maintenance detail, third party approvals, fire officers, insurers, building control, um, whatever. If it was a building or part of a building, then whatever keys, tools, and equipment, must be passed back over to the client, right? Yeah, so that's the day for contractor management. Tell me what you think. I kind of had added one guidance state. I don't think it's a tough question. At the same time, folks, I cannot remember a question, but I think it's a nice question. Like I would love a question like this because I could break it up into different stages then, like a 8 mark question, like the different stages of managing contractors. Then maybe they can say what are the documents required or identify documents to manage a contractor. You could just think of it as planning the job, choosing a contractor, right? So you want to kind of help me with that? If you were choosing a contractor, what type of documents would you look at? If you were now going to select a contractor, what type of
And
SOPs?
SOPs? Anybody else?
safety,
Safety measures, okay. It have
safety
some good
performance,
one. Safety performance. Yeah. Anybody else? What about things
risk
like past
assessments,
risk assessments? What about things like past work done? Like past work done by that contractor. Like who did you work for before? Who was your client before? What about checking things like the references, right? In terms of safety, they have things like in terms of safety, right? Like they ask things like if the person is a member of IOSH, I don't know if you all know that Irish is like the biggest health and safety body in the world. What about things like insurance? Right? You think you're getting that? I'm trying to make a passive out of it, right? Even though it may not have one. But I just saying if they ask you like identify, hopefully it's not an 8 mark question, but identify, let's say like 4 documents, right? But if it's an 8 mark question, like even more, risk assessments are correct, SOPs are correct, but also things like past work done.
Policies,
Say it again.
statements, policies.
Okay, yeah, the policy, and like because and you could learn it from this course now. So you say the MAP policy. Remember that's what this course said, the major accident prevention policy. What about hazards? You can incorporate the things you're learning now. What about bow tie analysis? Those kind of things now, right? What about history of
Competencia,
enforcement action? Yeah, competency, like
competencia
what the workers have.
staff.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So like the workers, what knowledge they have, what certificates they have, right? I think it's a lovely question, but it's me trying to make a question. I think I could see it as a number one question, right? Remember, your number one question is worth 20 marks, but it's broken up in eights. Well, kind of eights, right? Like 8, 6, and 2, and then that's 16 and maybe 4, right? So the first question in the paper is worth 20 marks. Um, kind of hoping you get a good 20-mark question, right, for your exam anyway. And things like these is not, like I said, today lesson to me, I could close my eye and teach it. As I said, I wanted the input now because there's nothing new now. Like it's nothing like I now have to go through and teach about safety case and stuff. It's not like that like last week Wednesday. Everything is kind of relatable, right? I was telling you already what I wanted to mention here. A student told me, now I actually, are you all seeing the slide still?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Okay. I see somebody probably it was an old thing on the chat, right? Maybe I can now click it here. Um, again, just what the student told me. A student told me, you see, the December paper, they said the December paper was 2019 paper. Now, I really can't confirm that because that's what the student said, right? And they said they checked it. They said they saw 20. Remember, this is somebody who did the December paper, but remember, I am not allowed in the exam room the day of the exam. So I might have independent examiners, right? So I didn't see, nor do I actually have the December paper, right? We have to return all to Nibosh. Before I get in the room, I normally come back to close the room. Those of us who know where the venue is at. So I normally come back to just see if the examiner is okay when they finish. But by that time, the examiner would have sealed the paper already, right? There is like an envelope Nibosh sent and it's like seal, you can't tamper with it. In fact, in the morning of your exam, you see them cutting the paper in front of you. They cut the envelope then in front of you. It's sealed. But I've actually invited that student to this class. I don't know if she's here, but I would have want to follow up on that a bit more. But she said that the paper they did was the 2019 paper that I think I emailed you. Although if that's the case, that's kind of good. But I cannot verify that because I already didn't see the December paper. All I could see is what the students say. Um, and if that's the case, so then that may be good. Maybe we really need to kind of focus a bit more on the past papers a bit. I know Devon and them really good at getting some. You see, they stopped putting past papers online, right? I think the last one is 2019. Since the pandemic, nobody does get them. I think you all know that too, right? You all see them, but we don't see them, right? How I may get like a diploma paper is from a student, right? But the diploma paper online, but this one is a physical paper, right? So it's sealed before I come in, and it's so I can't verify that. But if that's the case, that's nice. I know they're repeated questions, but I don't know how much are repeated. In fact, I have an idea. Some students, I mean, it's 3 or 4 questions repeat, right? So but if they say a whole paper is a repeat, I cannot verify that. The student seemed to be convinced that it was that she saw the 2019 paper and the paper they got was the 2019 paper. But if that's the case, I'm happy. Um, so then we should put some focus a little bit more on, you should put a little focus on looking at past papers and trying to see if we could, kind of get the questions out. I had an idea because students told me like they saw ALARP that. So I remember that somebody told me the question, and I can't remember all now. I just in front of you all because if I'm not in front of you all, I may remember more. But I think I remember a question on define the term near miss. That thought was a really easy question. Like, what is a near miss, right? Then there was a permit to work question, and I think it's this same permit to work question here, right? I had one lineup, but we are reached it yet. So let me not change the view as it. I think there's one in the 2013 paper. I think that was the same permit to work question. As people came out now, I remember people saying they saw this, they saw this, they saw this, they saw this. But in a way too, I didn't write it down. I just kind of I'm remembering like what people would have said as they come off the exam room, right? Of course, that's one thing to say that you saw a permit to work question, but they didn't really do it. They didn't really put what was needed on the paper. It's one thing to say, okay, you saw ELARP, but did you really do it? Did you really learn that definition? Because it's not copy now. It's not, it's not open book exam. Did you really say that it was balancing the risk against cost, time, and effort in a way that is not grossly disproportionate to do so? Now, how do you learn those words? The only way to learn those words is to learn those words, right? Anyway, I'm moving on. Safe shift handover, right? So safe shift handover in the oil and gas industry. I think this is the second bullet point on the, remember we're doing 1.1, sorry, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 today, right? So safe shift handover in the oil and gas industry. Everyday routine processes with proven workflows, instruction, and safety rules. The goal is the reliable and complete transmission of all relevant information needed by the subsequent team to continue the to work safely. Efficiency means effective communication and zero accidents. Right. Effective communication is best done in a two-way system with both the incoming shift and the outgoing shift taking joint responsibility. Participants being from different technical background who are technically astute must also be effective communicators. Don't let the words for it too much. Remember, we had to write the notes to satisfy the syllabus, right? But I'll explain everything in a bit. This is so easy, right? Handover meetings are usually formal and structured. Many experts recommend discussing the various topics in order of relevance, to take account of the falling attention span of the staff involved, especially when workers are working 12-hour shifts. Identifying the criteria for simple and high risk handover and defining suitable sequences for both types. Redundancy and diversity in the exchange media. It is ideal if both written as well as verbal communication channels are used. Personal conversation, like when a shift is coming in and leaving now, right? Are the richest information channels. Active face-to-face dialogues are the easiest and most effective ways to avoid or clear up ambiguities and misunderstanding. Direct feedback is the most effective method to check mutual understanding and correct any possible misunderstanding. Shift handover must be given the highest priority, conducted face-to-face, undertaken using accurate verbal and written communication, based on analysis of the information, needs of the incoming staff, given as much time as necessary to allow for questioning, explanation, and clarification. So I guess we could explain that safe shift handover. We could read on this one, I guess. Has like a form, just the incoming shift and the outgoing shift. They need to sort of communicate what has happened. Most of the times that communication may not be effective because workers are tired. They have some other reasons here. Sometimes, sometimes there may be spite between incoming and on but the outgoing and the incoming shift. It may be that that the whatever shift it is left, they had a work done for the other shift, right? So there may be some sort of conflict between shifts. I'm not too sure if this is a question in itself, but it's kind of like somebody problems at handover, right? Not enough time, no formal shift handover meeting held, off-going on the incoming members failing to attend shift handover meeting because they are tired. Maybe also emergencies may pop up, right? Outgoing shift wanted to get off. Conflict between the shifts, how much the off-going shift actually would have achieved, right? As compared to maybe what was expected of them to do. So you just have to read it and kind of digest it, right? I mean, personally, here now I can't think of a question, right? So you can read some of this off. I'll read the first, the middle, and the last. Some of the hazards of safe shift handover. A tendency for the outgoing shift to leave work they didn't want to do for the next shift. Failure to meet face to face. The last one, failure to hand over a permit, failure to keep record. But like the form would actually cover that, right? The safe shift handover form should cover that, right? So if there is some sort of issue on your shift, night shift or day shift, whatever would have been filled out, permit to work, right? MOC forms that should be handed over to the next shift, right? Um, so again, I don't see this as a big issue. I think it's something kind of commonplace, right? Examples of pitfall from not following a structured approach for safe shift handover are evident throughout recent history. Case in point, on July 6, 1988, a large fire and explosion on the Piper Alpha offshore platform killed 165 persons and completely destroyed the facility. And a lot of people have tracked that down to the failure of handing over a permit to work, right? We all know the story. A lot of us would know the story already that they had blank offer line, right? And they didn't, but that was on their permit, right? It was on the permit, just the permit wasn't handed over to the night shift. In the night, there were like two lines, and well, the good line failed. And so the night shift didn't know that the other line would have been blank off. So they put on the other line, and of course, that resulted in the buildup of flammables and exploded from there. That of course that platform Piper Alpha was what you call a manifold. It wasn't a normal rig. It was like a rig where a lot of lines flow into that platform then, right? So it was a disaster because like a rig in itself is good, but this was a manifold platform where many wells then went to that particular rig then, right? So 2.2 process safety management, you saw that, remember it from the syllabus. So if you want to explain this one, so they have something called the Dow Fire and Explosion Hazard Index, developed by ICI in 1979. That is the Imperial Chemical, Incorporated Company. And what they would have done here, they would have just taken like a plant, so like a layout, and they broke it down into smaller units. We call it compartmentation. And they would have just estimated like what is the probability of a fire. They calculate, they have like a indices that they use, the probability of a fire and an explosion within each unit then, right? So just there's simple ways of doing that. They can just think of it like a grid. So it's like a building that you're going to do, right? Because they say you're using the design of plant layout, right? And then with each unit, they will have like how to prevent based on how risky it is and based on the index that they use. Let's say the index was 1 to 3 and the highest being 3. Well, then for that particular area, they will have to suggest like fire and explosion control lead, right? So I could give you some very detailed examples. I don't know if I want to, but I guess if the area then, right? If the area, the unit, let's say you just drawing one cell of it here, this is let's say maybe where you had a furnace or whatever have you, then this area then would have had to have more controls based on the fire and explosion index, right? Um, that's about that. I think it's a nice proactive control using the Dow Fire and Explosion Hazard Index. It's not that I remember any question on that or anything. It's just that maybe something that is a bit new, right? We actually do this in fire. This is not something new. This is actually something normal. Like a large work area is broken up into different areas, and then, well, like I said, we call it compartmentation, and then we just see, well, how to prevent fire from like the warehouse, then from meeting the workshop, then from the workshop from getting in the office. Like each area is treated as a unit. Each area is treated in such a way that it has fire protection built into it. So sprinkler systems, fire extinguishers, fireproof doors. What again? Maybe wall coating, fire resistant, materials into metal materials so that the fire doesn't spread from one area to another area anyway, right? This is a chart that I included here. This is really not part of anything. Just I could choose your own matrices and stuff, how they would have done it. But it's something just additional anyway, right? A simple way to just take his matrices number 1 to 3 or something instead of, using something complicated like decimal points, right? So once you figure that out, this is actually on the syllabus. Now, once you figure that out, maybe what is your fire and explosion index? Let's just say 3. These are some of the controls that I saw the syllabus recommended, right? Of course, I could think of way more, but these are on your syllabus, right? So they suggested spacing of the operation plant. Again, let me grab my marker again here. And so there may be a part of the industry that where the furnaces are located, but then the offices are here, right? What could be this one? Maybe a storage area is there, right? So this is in the design stage. If that is where the furnace, or this is where maybe the tanks are holding the chemicals or whatever are placed, right? So it's kind of based on that, then you spaced out where the office would be located. In the event of a fire or an explosion, then, again, all of the things like wind direction, all of those would have been considered to put the office in a way that if there was a fire here, the blast zones and stuff now may not, the office wouldn't be in that pathway, right? So that's the purpose of compartmentation. That's the purpose of the getting like the risk estimate for each area. It's to kind of suggest a control, right? Positioning and protection of control rooms and critical equipment, specifically occupied building assessment. So each one have their own sort of risk assessment, temporary refuge offshore, and the critical safety system associated with temporary refuge, integrity, fire resistance, blast resistance, right? So in the offshore industry, some of us would know you have those refuge areas that would have been designed in such a way then to withstand a fire and explosion for a certain time. Remember, no safe refuge is actually safe. They say for more than 30 minutes, right? Most of the integrity and stability, there's actually a ratio. I think some of us who did the degree would remember that how they check the materials then, right? Like if this was, they had like a wall here. They said this is a firewall or something, right? And that would have been treated with intumescent materials or fireproof material and stuff. It doesn't stay good forever then, right? It'll give you like a time at which the material is good. They normally express it as a ratio, like integrity over stability. And that tells you like how long, if there was a partition here or there was a fire door here, right? How long would it sort of withstand the fire for that? And this is quite long. 10-20 minutes is very long because most materials don't give you that sort of time anyway, right? Um, HVAC systems, access to evacuation means heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system, like I suppose if that could be a control, right? Or maybe the placement of those as well based on a fire or an explosion. Maybe those things, could be used, I mean, other than HVAC, but I saw, you see, HVAC is what was on your syllabus, but I was thinking more things like sprinkler systems and um if you all know what relief panels are and stuff, all of like a relief panel, a blast panel is meant to kind of blow out in the event of an explosion, but that's the one I saw on the syllabus. So that's the one I kind of put there, right? But you can take up this as maybe where you're gonna put relief panels, where you're gonna put blow down drums, for those who know what those things are. A blow down vessel, maybe something that's connected to that, that could actually take the blast zone of this tank, right? It have things you could put on them. Explosion, sort of suppressing machines. I don't know if anybody want to write that down if you don't know it. The diagram doesn't look that good. Maybe I should take it off and draw another one, right? So like if this was a tank or some sort of thing that it, could have fire and explosion, one of the things you could put in this is what is called like an explosion suppressing machine then or device, right? This is normally connected here, but there is like a relief panel here. So in the event pressure was to increase inside here, right? This relief panel will blow out and then it will go into the suppressant chamber. And this device you put here, like a HVAC system, is kind of meant to deal with that explosion, right? So that the explosion wouldn't really cause a blast zone then. It's meant for that, right? But I didn't see them mention anything like explosion suppression. I just saw HVAC on your syllabus. I put that back there. But please remember, I could probably see a little bit more. Explosion suppression units, they look like an AC unit, right? They look about the size of an AC unit. You could actually put it there, like our AC unit is on your wall. You could actually put that there. And in the event of a increased temperature, pressure, fire, whatever explosion, once you have it connected there, it's going to suppress the blast zone, then the blast power is going to go into that. But that is designed to neutralize it, right? All right. Taking it off, right? All right. We have again management of change. Well, I think that was it for that, right? So controls coming out of the fire and explosion indices, right? So controls are available. No, I read that already. Management of change control. So I think it may be a bit of a change here in topic. So to properly manage changes to process chemicals, technology, equipment, and facilities, one must define what is meant by change. In the process safety management standard, this is element 2. Change include all modification to equipment, procedures, raw materials, and process conditions other than what you normally have to replace, other than normal replacement, right? So like if you're normally cleaning out your tanks once every quarter, that may not really require management of change. But if you're changing some sort of seal on an equipment, or maybe something happened to the tank and you have to modify it a bit, right? And it's not the time for that. That may be a change then. If you have changed something, if you have changed a piece of equipment, right, that requires a document to be filled out called management of change. And that's how simple that is anyway, right? So temporary changes have caused a number of catastrophes over the years, and employers need to establish ways to detect, temporary changes as well as those that are permanent. Temporary changes are subject to the management of change provision, which is the form. In addition, the management of change procedures are used to ensure that equipment and procedures are returned to the original or design condition at the end of the temporary change. Proper documentation and review of these changes is invaluable in ensuring that the safety and health considerations are being incorporated. A typical change form should include a description of the purpose of the change. So that may be good. The technical basis of the change, health and safety consideration because of that change, documentation of changes for the operating procedure, maintenance procedures, inspection and testing, electrical, classification, training and communication, pre-startup inspection, duration, and if a temporary change, approval and authorization. That may be a lot to put there. So perhaps maybe you could try to commit some of that to memory, right? But there's a lot on that paragraph there, right? Let's see, formal documented system developed to identify required modification. And so anything that requires a change would have the MOC form, right? So I don't think I need to read all of that, right? So all changes to process plans, once it's a change that's not a normal thing, you have to record it on the MOC, right? So documentation that may be considered in the modification include the original process system design, process flow diagrams, list of controls, alarms, and trip settings, process equipment specification, drawing detailed classification of hazardous area, right? So that could be the same as the documents, right? If they ask, again, I mean, it's up to you now to probably say that a document that could be viewed is maybe the original blueprints, and if there was a change to like a design of a building or a tank or whatever have you, right? Then you would want to go back to the original drawings anyway, right? But I could think of simpler answers. It's just that if you would be able to identify with it. Like if if operating condition changes then, right? Maybe this one here, process equipment specification, right? So if you think of an equipment, a motor, right? And the motor you have is capable of doing, let's say, a certain number of revolutions per minute, RPMs. But because of flow, I mean, this is something that they actually do in the oil industry, right? So like because of flow, maybe the flow into a tank is too much, right? Because of maybe when the suppliers are coming for that oil, or maybe it's too low. Maybe the flow of tank in the oil, sorry, the flow of oil in the tank, like because of a client, you have to sell the oil out at a particular time of the week, right? That is maybe some sub oil fields anyway. We have lots of them in Trinidad. We have lease operators. So maybe the flow is too low, but the pump then has a particular RPM, and that is what is on your documents and whatever have you. So you have to adjust the RPMs. That is something that could be done. Most technicians could actually do that anyway. And so if you increase the RPMs, you're going to get more flow to the vessel, more flow to the tank, meaning that the client, if it's a parry or whatever, will be getting their oil on time, right? But again, if that is something here, process equipment specifications, so you change the RPMs, then that would require, I just did one, right? That would require a management of change, form to be filled out. I didn't really want to make it so technical, but that's a simple one anyway, not too technical, right? Yeah. So management of change, controls, roles, and responsibilities. I guess I could read, but I suppose everything here would sort of suggest that if there was a change to rules and responsibilities, and that should be documented as well, right? On the MOC form. So task requirement to be matched to the personnel, skill set, and competence of each person. If gaps exist, this can be used for scheduling further training. Changes should be in phases. A change proposal document should be used. This would identify those who could authorize the change, ensure that the plan changes are within all operational safe limits or parameters, right? Proposed MOC should be implemented in phases and continuous monitoring and auditing. Feedback and good communication to actively be undertaken, right? Again, this little chart at the bottom is one of my own. I don't think it's a bad chart, though it says in terms of some of the work aspect, offshore engineer, we have from concept, project, execution, we have operation, right? And I suppose if there's any changes within any part of it then, right? Perhaps which would be an easy one, I guess training, right? So if training to, I guess I could pick something in safety, right? But it could be other things, like an operator getting into a vessel, could be emergency escape, it could be gas testing, it could be the operator or the worker, because this is under operation, this is under supervision, may have had to do over a refresher course then, right? So they may have done first aid, they may have done gas testing some years ago. So based on that, I don't think that may require a change, but I guess if I want to say it requires a change, we have to say that there's some sort of new training need then, right? There's a new training need for that person who may not have done, like respirator training before, or maybe how to handle, some sort of emergency like AED training. That if it's something new then, right? If it's something that was like a modification in terms of training, then that may require an MOC form to be filled out as well, right? Typically the MOC form would have who is the person that requested the change, who is the owner, and of course a bunch of signatures, right? Because that has to go through management and different, managerial position. Each person approving the MOC form anyway, right? And that will bring us to the end of that part of it. I did say we'll try to finish off. I kind of going a bit fast because to me it's not that hard, but this would be my last one. After this one, we'll stop and look at the past paper, right? Today we said we're going to get to 2.3. Permit to work out of all of them, we did, I think, I think contractor management is something I would like to see, but out of all of them, permit to work is kind of like, the best one for the exam, right? So permit to work is a formal written system used to control certain types of work that has a high hazard potential. It includes the people, equipment, materials, and the environment involved in the system. The permit to work also includes the mechanism to control the work to ensure it is done in the correct way, such as supervision and confirming signatures on the permit document. Rules and purpose and features of a permit to work. It specifies the work to be done. It predetermines a safe procedure for the work. It is a clear record that foreseeable hazards have been considered in advance. It defines the appropriate sequence in which the work is to be carried out. It sets out responsibilities of the authorized person. But some of us will know this already. The authorized person is the person that issues the permit to you. The authorized person is like a manager then, like a safety manager. However, it doesn't have to be a manager and it doesn't even have to be safety. It could be somebody in operations, right?
Area authority.
What makes somebody an authorized person is that they have experience, right? It doesn't make sense put a safety as the authorized person if that person is green. If you are operations and you have had years of experience, with vessels and whatever it is, entry or whatever, right? Tank entry, whatever, right? Then that person may be best put as the authorized person. The person who issued the permit is the one who actually collects back the permit, verifies that the work is done, and there are some other things in the permit that have to be verified, like that perhaps things like the work is done to specification, the time required in the permit was actually fulfilled, and once those things are done, the authorized person cancels the permit, right? Some of those headings is on the slide coming up. So the person who issues the permit is that person have to cancel the permit as well, right? We'll look at the permit to a question in a bit because I know it have one. We'll see what they were asking, right? Confirms critical steps have been taken and by whom. So generally permits are meant for those activities that are high risk. Some of those high risk activities is hot work, confined space, pressurized vessel, cold work, electrical work. We'd love to get a question like this because it's very easy, right? Permits are normally pre-printed forms. You just have to fill them out. Um, a permit is not a task analysis, but a task analysis could be attached to it. A risk assessment could be attached to a permit as well, right? So let me see if there's anything important here. So, um, but I'm seeing some things that could class as headings, right? Some of these things could be classed as a heading on a permit, but I may leave it for another slide, or I may just leave it, yeah, like some of the headings on the other slide, right? So a permit to work, normally have a couple of headings on them, like for example, the task that is to be done, a time, right? The hazards or risk assessment is attached. All of those things are on a permit, right? The startup of the work, when is the work to be cancelled? Cancellation is a heading on a permit. So we could take it here to the next slide, right? So the permit normally have headings like the permit issuer, permit receiver. Again, the permit issuer is the person, is the authorized person. They are the ones that issue the permit, and they are the ones that verify the work is completed to the requirements in the permit, and then they would cancel the permit, right? Permit user is actually more than one person. The permit user could be a supervisor, operator, and it will come down to the actual people that's doing the work. If it's a welder, a diver, a laborer, right? In a tank, somebody doing corrosion, treatment, somebody doing NDT testing inside of a vessel, right? It will come down to them. So the permit receiver is not one person, it's actually a series of people your from your supervisor, to your next in command, maybe to your fire watch, maybe to your whole watch, right? If you're getting into these vessels now, right? And then eventually to you, if you are the one that is going to be doing some sort of cleaning or corrosion resistant inside of a tank, right? So all of those persons are classed as competent persons. Even the gas testers is a space for all of those persons to sign the permit, right? even the emergency teams. I know some things is missing off from this, right? So the key features of a permit to work includes some of the headings is the scope of the work, the duration of the work, any known hazards, and have a risk assessment been done and is it attached? Details of any lockout and tagout or isolation procedures. Is there a link to another work that is taking place or other open permits? Right? Specification of the persons accepting the permits, emergency control, specific controls such as for gas testing. So all of those are like things in the permit that must be filled out before the work is done. A PTW can serve as a means of obtaining or passing information on hazards and controls between simultaneous operation, as it should have done in Piper Alpha, or simultaneous shift, or with adjacent plants. It can also serve as an interface between contractors on various shifts, right? It is essential that the permit issuer, which is the authorized person, considers the potential impact of the work on adjacent plant and equipment is best achieved by having a central issuing authority or location. Permits must be displayed clearly, it must be copied, right? Some companies kind of fail in that, and again, Pare was a fail of that too, that it should have had copies of the permit. In fact, they didn't even fill it out, but for those companies that fill it out, it should be copied, right? And be given to like another, if you have another contractor linked to your work then, right? So like if you were in a vessel, but then you had another contractor repairing the line, and then they're going to put on back that line. Hopefully you have a lockout and tagger, but then some systems, manifold systems, have more than one lines, right? So like a contractor, sorry, may be away from your plant, right? They don't know that your line has been isolated. But if it's a manifold system, they may be like miles away from you. They repair a line and then they eventually going to turn that on. Now, that may feed another subline that will come into your tank with workers inside of it, right? So anything like adjacent work, right? A copy of that must
So
be
it's like the
given to the adjacent contractor. Yes, Devon?
so it's like the return to service on the permit to work system.
And that could be given to anybody who is around, who is like around that plant now. But you all know the oil and gas field, right? For those who know it like that, like lines and manifolds, sometimes it's more than one, right? It's like more than one way to get oil into your vessel, right? Hopefully you do have your main valves locked out and tagged out, right? At the same time, though, there could be other lines feeding into those. Like when I mentioned manifold systems, it's like more than one line. So you really need, if there's somebody working in another part of that line or another aspect of that line, to be informed. And one of the ways NIBOSH like it is with saying copies, right? Like a copy of the permit should have been given to the contractor, even if they're not even on your location, 2 miles away, they should have been given a copy, right? So must be displayed clearly, must be issued to both contractors and workers by the issuing authority, which is the authorized person. A nice way to do it is at a lockout and tagout. Many of you all know these already. But for those who don't know, isolation is the idea here. Isolation actually means, this could be a definition. Sorry, I didn't put it though. Oh, look, I have it there. Or do I? Safe isolation, right? So for 2 marks, maybe what is isolation? So this is when isolation is needed, but isolation, the interruption, disconnection, and separation of all equipment, motive power sources in such a way that this disconnection and separation is secured by lockable means. That's one definition. I kind of like, I think I got this from the oil and gas book or something, right? But I think I like one of the definitions I like is that isolation means, like turning off all power sources. I think this one is from the HSC, the one I quoted now is from the HSC. Turning off all power sources and preventing them from being re-energized. That's a nice definition, like a 2-mark definition. What is isolation? All right, of course, by the lockout and tagout, indeed, it is by a lockable means. And many of you all know those devices. You can put a lock and a tag. And these you can purchase them. You can get these in most safety stores. This is if you're able to have a latch and you're able to lock it like that. If it's like a valve head, I don't have a picture of that one here, but I don't know if you all have seen. I think I made mention of it. It's like a clamp. Look at there, a clamp. If you have like a valve head, like the wrong part of the head itself, some companies remove the valve head, but then you could buy the lockout, tag out clamp, and you clamp the head and then you lock it. It's a clamp that goes over it. So nobody could turn the valve head then if you know somebody's inside of a vessel, right? Let me read out these slides. It look like we finished. So my teaching technique today did work. If you all notice, I didn't read everything. I tried more of an explanation tactic today. Of course, when we did things like BOTA, we had to, it was more writing and drawing and stuff, right? But I felt that today work wasn't so strange that we couldn't really just kind of get the main idea of it anyway, right? So I'll read out these two last slides now, and it's just about 2 o'clock. We could probably take a look at that passive. But whenever we finish, we sort of wrap it up there for today. We leave, some of it for Wednesday. Wednesday look like if we are going to finish. The other piece of this is not hard, by the way. Again, if you look at it, first of all, look at the syllabus, but then if you look at it here, it's the same thing, maintenance strategies. I could probably stick to the same technique of teaching, shut down and start up, and it's not long again, right? To say that we could finish off element two, right? But of course, Wednesday is less time. Wednesday is just an hour. We could finish that off and we could tie it into passive, right? So let me read these two slides for you all here and I'll end it off, right? Well, end of the teaching and then we're going to look at our passive, right? So lockout, tag out, and isolation, safe isolation steps. Example, machinery or plant is stopped by normal means. All residual energy reserves to be exhausted or discharged. All moving parts stopped in a safe position. The electrical mains must be turned off. A padlock fitted to the isolator labeled or coded to identify the owner of the lock. Main isolators must be locked off. Just reading, right? Same kind of heading, right? Where more than one person require access, then a safety clamp upper the brandier type should be fitted. But again, like the keys to that, like if there's a clamp and normally there's a key to open it, it's actually held by the authorized person. Appropriate warning sign to be posted as a means of stopping or starting the machine. Captive key system to be used as a secondary means of isolation. I don't know if you know what that means. I don't know if I have to explain it. I probably could. I'll explain it still, right? But like and if you want me to. So I guess I was just looking at this, right? For those of us who have used these things, um, these look good. I mean, these look good. This picture looks good, right? But like, I don't know if you have had the experience. Anybody ever use this and you had the experience like where somebody pull off the tag where you come back in the evening and you see the tag in the ground? Anybody had that kind of experience? I remember seeing some and
Yeah.
some,
Yep,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that could be kind of bad with this because I guess in your experience you may have seen the same
Condition to
thing.
be one.
Yeah,
They,
but
cha- they,
was it?
they, they actually changed it to a harder plastic that used to be less durable. So now they change it where it wouldn't actually tear off. It's more like a firm plastically
Yeah.
material. So
Yeah,
yeah.
does I find these look good? Stephen, what would be the cause for maybe seeing that in the ground?
It could be weather condition. There's be one. Um, the amount of keys and locks. Sometimes when people taking it out, they just tear it off accidentally. Other people want. So then the common factors are
Yeah,
these things get teared off
yeah,
and
true,
removed.
true, right? Well, yeah, I know you all have the experience, so that's why I asked. That was my experience as well, right? All right, captive key system. I don't know if you want to explain that. So a captive key system is that the key is actually like trapped in the device. So this may not be a good picture of captive key because this is just a normal lock. But a captive key system is the key is locked in the device, right? So I have to draw something else here for you, but I'll make it kind of fast, right? So if something was a captive key system, if I guess I'm going with a valve, right? So if there's a valve, right, and you have like a clamp on this valve here, so the key to open this clamp then is sort of trapped in this other device here, right? So there'll be a key, but it's trapped here. So you can't get it. So it's called a captive key system. Now, if you remove the key, in some way that will interfere with this valve in itself, right? So for the valve to, or whatever this is, right? So this is a poor example, right? But I'm just trying to, like a simple example. So whatever this is, if it was a line or something, a line with oil or gas or whatever have you, right? The key being here would allow like the gas not to flow, right? So the fact the key is here mean that there's no flow, which is what you want because this is something meant for isolation, right? So when the key is removed and you open the clamp, then the gas will flow, right? So in a way, in a captive system, the key is a part of the function of the machine, right? In this case, I link it to a line, right? So if the key is here, the key is outside the valve head then, right? And this may be leading, this is a valve leading into a tank, whatever, right? So once the valve is on, the tank will full, right? So the key is here. So when the key is here, there is no flow. Think you understand that? So in a way, it's a safety measure then. Because if you open the valve, the line was, well, whatever it is then, oil or gas will start to flow. So the fact that the key is here now and here is locked, right? There is no flow, right? It's called a captive key system, right? That is, and some of it is electrical, some of it is pneumatic. You could only guess this have to be set up. This is not a normal device. But if when the work is finished, if workers were cleaning this tank, corrosion resistant, you name it, right? Paint in the tank, whatever. If they take out the key now and they transfer the key here and they open the valve, then by taking out the key, oil or gas will start to flow here and come back here and prime up here. So when they turn this valve now, the gas or the oil, whatever, the water would be right there, ready to go back in. Well, not there, but fill into the tank. That's a captive key control system, right? Again, the key is linked to what you want to do, right? The fact that we isolating and the key is outside there, there's no flow taking place in that system then, right? Kind of keep it in mind. You can never tell, you can never tell, you can never tell. You're looking for an answer sometime. What's a control? And you remember captive key control system. Fine, right? You could probably see if you could put it back in an answer anyway, right? So that's the 2.3. It's now 5 minutes. 5 minutes past 2. Right? Let me open the past paper that I had up, right? See what I did with it. Again, to those of us who know, I could try to track down more of these things, but I am so busy in the day now. Like, I could make a call. I have another lecturer on the oil and gas program, yes, and we have another approved lecturer right now for oil and gas on the NEBOS system. Um, I mean, but anyway, I could try to track down some papers, right? But it's just the time, right? I know sometimes you all could track them down too. It's the time to probably kind of give them that call. It would be in my mind, and then like the phone would ring, and somebody wants something, and somebody else call for something else, and before long, it's 4 o'clock, right? That's what the days are anyway, right? Okay. But there is one here. So this is the 2013 paper. I had all of these papers in it, but I lost them, sometimes due to rodents, right? Remember, we had papers for 10 years now, but sometimes like when the year ends, I do housekeeping. You see the papers that have been soiled, so you kind of dispose of them, right? But I had some real past papers for these courses anyway. I mean, we kind of remain with the digital set, but the hard copies now, after 10 years, they don't look the same way that they used to look 10 years ago, right? And so I sometimes would have gotten rid of them, not realizing that they could be of importance, and like how that student said that paper was actually repeated, right? All right, this is 2013. Question 4, 8 marks. It says identify 4 types of work activities associated with an oil installation that might require a permit to work, right? So 4, identify and give a reason for each case for the requirement. identify 4 types of work activity associated with an oil installation that might require a permit to work, right? So you want the type of work activity. The focus here is type of work activity in an oil installation, right? And then you want to give a reason for each of the requirements. So let's see what they have, right? But I mean, just before we go into the suggested kind of answers there, the verb here is identify. It's not really a hard question, right? Identify is like 1 or 2 lines. By you identifying the type of work activity in an oil installation, right? You could, I mean, we could go with some of the things you heard me say, things, like vessel cleaning, right? Some of those things like tank entry. I've kind of been trying to use those examples anyway. Hopefully some of those things kind of sink in, right? Well, then
So
fabricated.
if you
Uh-huh.
if you just use like confined space, you need to specify the type of confined space.
Yeah, I would, because they say oil installation, I would kind of break it down to like,
Like tank cleaning,
yeah, I would break it
confined
down. I would
space,
break it down
tank
into that. I would
cleaning.
break it down into, like contractor, so a type of work activity is a contractor, because they said work activity, right? So a contractor entering a vessel. You can pick your own vessel, but my kind of background is actually oil, right? So contractor entering, like a tank for cleaning purposes. And then you could probably put in brackets that would have constitute maybe confined space. So some
Confined
of these
space.
things I did, right? When I did them, I told you all, I know Stephen knew me a bit here from back in the day. Some of y'all know me too from back in the day. When we did these things, my father was a contractor now, so all through 20s and stuff, I was working with him, clamping line. I think I told you all those things. Enter in a pit, a oil pit with your jockey shorts on, because you had to clean the pit now. You had to clean the what it's called, the bleed of the pit. But when we did those things, it wasn't much safety consideration, You kind of just went in the vessel, right? I mean, like when I say long ago, right? I mean, 20 years ago, safety where it is now wasn't where it is 20 years ago, right? And yeah, and so things like like when I mentioned fabricating, welding, corrosion resistant, painting tanks, those are things I actually did, right? So you could pick some of the activities now, like painting, fabricating. That's why I kind of share this story so that it could kind of remember. Hopefully you don't remember the other part that I just said, right? So when you pick that, then you have to say why. You say like give a reason. So like you say the permit to work. So what I would do, I would link it to an aspect of the permit. When if you got that. So I would say like the type of work activity is contractor entering the tank for cleaning. This is a confined space. And then I would link that now to the reason is that so I can probably talk about proper gas testing or proper. So I'm pulling out one of the headings from the permit. I wonder if you saw what I just did there. So my reason is that why a permit must be given for tank cleaning is because, and you can pick a heading on the permit, like you can pick gas
You should
testing should
just,
have been done.
so
Yeah,
if
go
you
ahead.
just put so if you put exactly like what you said there, and you put to ensure proper air quality due to ensure it's not either flammable vapor or proper air quality, sufficient oxygen to sustain life.
That's
That'll be
nice. That's
sufficient.
nice. Yeah, yeah, nice. But that one, because I know and the rest of students too, you should probably say 21% oxygen. So you kind of remember this going to a UK examiner, just try to get your mark, mention the oxygen concentration. Of course, you can mention, maybe hydrogen sulfide within certain limits. And you understand what I did? I pick a reason from the heading then, right? I pick a reason from the heading, right? What about PPE? What about risk assessment? So a permit to work must be given because the risk and hazards associated with welding. You can pick an activity, welding and modifying a tank, right? And then you talk about things like like that will minimize the hazards and the risk involved in that process. Or maybe a suggested a suggested RPE, a suggested CBA. You kind of link it to that then, right? To get your mark. So, folks, for this one too, I know I would have mentioned, because this is 2 things. You see the identify and you see the and, that's 2 things. I would say this should come about 3 lines.
Screen
Like one of
is changing.
it.
The question not on the screen.
Oh, the question not on the screen.
The
What
question
happened
isn't
then?
on the screen.
It disappeared. It's still there for me. Okay, tell me.
The lockout tagout is currently still on the screen.
Oh, okay. Wow. Where did that go? Tell me now if it changed. No?
Still hasn't changed.
Okay, all right, just now. Well, in my side, I can't see what's wrong, right? So I'm gonna stop the share. I'm gonna share the I thought you were looking at it, you know. Um, Tell me now.
Yeah.
Okay, good. But I think I had to take off what I was taking off. But what I wrote now, I was saying to you all, because this question is it's two things, you have to be careful, right? Like when you identify the work activity, you have to give a reason. What I'm saying, that's going to be linked to the permit. Like how we said, the entry into the, well, I mean, not that one, I'll use another one, right? So like maybe the fabricator, you know, the cleaning, right? Or even the, like what about NDT testing, even testing the integrity of the weld or the tank that was modified, right? May require the operators to go inside and that may require them to have on full SIBA then, right? Not a respirator. A respirator is going to make it worse anyway for breathing purposes. So you can talk about like the work activity, you talk about the heading and the permit being PPE consideration, and then you say why. So that gonna hit you about a 3 lines or maybe three and a little bit of lines. Yes, I know it's tough, but that's how you have to do it. It's not just identify alone. It's identify with an and give a reason. So because of that, it went out of the scope of 1.5 line then. I think it could come more to 3 lines. And then you're doing this 8 times. You want 8 headings on the permit or 8 things about the permit. And you link it, you know, to well, 4 activities. Sorry, my mistake, right? It's 4 activities, right? My mistake. I look at the 8 marks. So 4 activities, and then you link it now to a reason. So again, this is actually not 8, but it's actually going to be 4, right? You see that? Identify 4 types, even though it's 8 marks, but you have to give the and. So as I said, this is going to come out of a typical identify question is 1.5 lines. But because it's have the and with it, you're going to have to probably put a little bit more lines to it, right? 3.5 lines or whatever. Depends on what you're saying. If you're talking about PPE, RPE, emergency rescue, the more you can talk about it, the more you can get it done, right? Let me read this and then I'll close off with one hint, which may be something you want to practice if you want to do this question. I think you have the paper. In fact, probably if you want to give it a hint now, the hint will be if you could put a watch in your room or a clock in your room and kind of try to time yourself 10 minutes so this, you'll understand the stress of doing that, right? The most you might want to give yourself is maybe 12 minutes, right? To kind of get this done anyway. So let's see what they say. But you know, is it better news is if you all prepare it well and it was repeated, you will have it now, right? Maybe we could psych out some of them. Maybe we could never do all because Nibosh, you know, will mix up the questions a bit. But perhaps, you know, we could that could be of a help too. If you prepare them well, do them well, and you keep them. Of course, send them to me. When I send them back to you, keep them. And let's hope that some of these are repeated anyway. So this question related to element 2, which we just did of the syllabus, and assess candidates' knowledge of learning outcome 2.3. We just did that as well. Explain the role and purpose of permit to work systems. Most candidates were able to obtain at least half the marks. No, that's not good. That's a bad statement because half the mark means that you didn't pass. If the thing is worth 8 marks and they say most obtain at least half, and at least half means that you got 4 marks or 5 marks, whatever, right? And we're able to identify activities that would require a permit to work with reference to entry into confined spaces. Hot work, that's the fabrication. Working at height, that's a nice one. Remember, it's a tank. Working at height being most commonly cited. Some of the candidates refer to working over water without mentioning whether this was connected with diving operation or working at height. Remember, this does have offshore in it too, so nothing is wrong with that if you mention something like that. But Yeah, actually, they did mention the oil at an oil installation, right? So I suppose in the offshore industry, you do have your storage tanks as well, right? Or storage vessels, right? Others nominated work activities without. I wonder why they said nominated because nominated is not. You see a pause, but when they said others nominated, I mean, it's not that you're nominating an activity, are you? I mean, you're saying the activity, but others nominated work activities without elaborating on the reason for associated or for the associated permit to work, right? My thing
Question,
is,
sir.
mhm.
Some of the candidates referred to working over water without mentioning whether this was connected with diving. Then it would have been working in the water. Working over the water is over the side work, better known as over the side. It have nothing to do with working in the water. They use two different terminologies when you're doing any diving operations.
I wouldn't be able to. I mean, this is an examiner's feedback, so like what I could probably suggest is that most examiners are not experts either. But if you are, those of us who are familiar, you could probably say it the right way. But I wouldn't be able to justify the examiner's comment then, right? It's just what they put here anyway, right? So I guess maybe a learning outcome here would be if you're saying working over water, you could probably say that that's connected to an activity then, right?
Working over the
Uh,
side of the vessel or the
yeah, so you can
platform.
link it to an activity, right? You know, uh, probably not
So it's
just the
basically
jumping
working on
form.
heights, but over the water on the vessel.
Yeah, right. Because you could say it like that. And I've seen, I mean, like, have you not seen like workers leaving a FPO, a floating, storage, system now, right? And they do have to cross like the platform to come back. So maybe link it to something like that. Um, in the examiner mind here, they mentioned something with diving operation. Again, that may not really be at full dive, but that's just the examiner's comment. I already would know what would have been in their mind. But whatever you say, just kind of make it clear for them so that they are familiar with it, right? Folks, that's a wrap. I think for me, I thought we had a good class because I was able to finish. We're able to do a pass paper. There's really not much better you can get like that when you can do a D and then do a pass paper as well, right? Let me mark the rule here. It looks like Wednesday will finish off chapter 2, I think. If I assess it and I see we can't, or we could, but it is an hour we have on Wednesday, right? I would probably send another PowerPoint, but if I think it's suitable for the hour, I'd leave it and probably just try to tie in a past paper also, right? That's get the rule, and once we have this, I would wish you all the best for today. I do have another class. I know sometimes you all think, I know I've said that to you, all right? So it's not as if I could actually go and put up the video. I have another class starting in a bit, right? And then from that, I want to kind
So
of
just
study. Mhm.
one quick one. I just put up the revision notes for the this particular course. You could probably, well, everybody can have a look and see. But there's everything you mentioned strictly in point form for the same
Very
Nibosh.
good. Appreciate it, Devon, right? Appreciate it. Um, Seen two guys now joining in. What happened to them? They just come to call the roll or something? Or did they get log out? Christopher and Raven. And they're in this class. They're not in the class coming up. All right, let me admit them and I'll get the rule. Right. Thanks for all the information, folks. Please write something. Please write something. Please write something. Take one of the questions, do it, write it, time yourself. At the end of the day, you all know Nibosh Night, have nothing. We are the course providers. We don't hold your certificate. We don't do anything. We try our best then, right, in terms of preparation and what could be done, but it comes down to you. And like I said, if you haven't written with a pen in a long time, give it a try. I myself haven't. I mean, I do a lot of signing and stuff, but because of all of the exams now, a lot of people type their work, getting back to pen and paper is a little bit strange anyway, right? But that's what it is like for this exam. Right? Let me check out the names now, right? We seem to be all here because I see it. Actually, one person may be missing, right? But let's see, right? Akash,
Present.
Thanks very much. Chanel. Oh, sorry, before you leave, right? If Akash and Goa's yet. Um,
No.
uh,
Yeah.
Saturday's payment, right, folks? You all please remember that. I know you all, it is kind of difficult. Just explain the whole process, but remember, NIBOSH have to be paid. Fees and stuff now, right? We do wire transfers. Well, when we could, we do credit card payments when we could. So leave it for Saturday, please. But I want the fees to come in at a particular time because going to the bank is never easy in Trinidad, and then getting the cost of the transfers is not easy as well, right? So you all keep it for Saturday. I'll message the group in the week, but we mentioned it to all our classes. Saturday comes the first Saturday in March anyway, right? Okay, thanks Akash for hanging around, right? Shanil Ryan,
Present.
thanks very much. Risha
Quick
Thompson,
question, sir.
yeah.
The payment, would you only be accepting it on Saturday? Can we do it like probably Friday?
You could do it before, but just call me because sometimes I am not like we try to allocate certain things. Like they come to the office on a Saturday, you'll see a coordinator now, right? So like there's somebody to collect it. If you're coming in another day in the week, just call me before to ensure that I'm there. Every day in the office and I'm there till the night too, but I don't be there every hour. Like paying fees, I have to get to the bank. So like if there's books to buy or fees to pay and people to transfer and stuff, then I will leave to get those things done then. But yes, we could do it before, just make sure that I'm there. You can call me
Okay,
before
no
to let
problem.
me know what my time is like on the weekdays anyway. All right.
All right, thanks.
Richard Thompson. Naveen. I know
Yeah.
Naveen is there, right? Okay. Jessica Alfred is here. Nigel.
Yeah.
Crystal Thomas.
Present.
Thanks, Nigel. Alicia is here. Rian Gilbert. Yes, Crystal, I put your present, right? I can see the names too on my side. Yeah, yeah. Alicia Kayan. Christopher Gobin. Alim, I don't think it's here. Okay, thanks, Alicia.
Yeah.
Alicia Sultan. Yes, Alicia Sultan is here, right? Stephen is here still.
Present.
Okay. Raven, Devon, and Cohen. Yeah.
Present, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Cohen and Devon, right? All right, folks. I'll see you all hopefully a bit on Saturday, right? For whatever you're
So
doing.
I will be coming. I'll be coming on the 2nd of March. So that's like
Not a
Carnival
problem. Yeah,
Sunday.
yeah. So okay,
Okay.
good. But yeah, so those are the things that if you ever wonder, like, why am I never like I'm out, like whatever. So that that cannot be helped, everyone. That's just how it is. But we just have to do what we have to do now. I'm in the office every day, like I said, but
Yeah,
I
I'll be
do
there
know
Ash Wednesday. I'll be
yeah,
there Ash
yeah.
Wednesday.
Not a problem, not a problem, right? Okay, folks, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you all
Okay.
back next week officially anyway. All the best, everyone. Bye.